I owe him my life for that. No bullshit. Like, I know you risked it all.
Eminem's entire career almost never happened, and it took one risky split-second decision from Dr. Dre to change everything. Before the Grammys, before the global fame, Eminem was broke, humiliated, and ready to walk away from rap forever. But today, Eminem is finally revealing the truth about Dr. Dre, the man who didn't just discover him, but pulled him back from the edge of destruction. And just when you think you know their story, the near-death moments and hidden battles will leave you stunned.
But I just didn't know how much internal shit he was fighting.
Before we dive into how Eminem's life flipped upside down, we need to rewind to Dr. Dre's story, because without Dre's rise and fall in the 90s, Slim Shady might never have existed. Eminem's breakthrough wasn't just about one man's talent. It was about timing, fate, and Dre being in the exact position where he needed someone to believe in again. Andre Romelle Young, better known to the world as Dr. Dre, had already reinvented hip-hop twice before Eminem ever touched a microphone in his studio. First came NWA, the group that redefined rap by dragging the brutal realities of Compton into mainstream America. Their album, Straight Outta Compton, wasn't just music, it was an earthquake. Songs like F the Police shocked suburban households, rattled politicians, and landed NWA in the middle of a national free speech debate. Dre's beats, raw, heavy, and ahead of their time, became the backbone of the movement. Without Dre's sound, NWA might never have had the same cultural punch. But Dre didn't stop there. After leaving NWA in the early 90s due to money disputes with Eazy-E and Ruthless Records, Dre co-founded Death Row Records alongside the notorious Suge Knight. This was Dre's second act, and once again, he dominated. Under Death Row, Dre produced Snoop Dogg's debut album Doggy Style in 1993, which broke records by selling over 800,000 copies in its first week. He also helmed Tupac Shakur's All Eyes on Me in 1996, one of the first double rap albums and still considered a masterpiece. Dre's fingerprints were everywhere. From The Chronic in 1992, which introduced the world to G-Funk and immortal tracks like Nothing But a G-Thing, to California Love with Tupac, Dre wasn't just making hits, he was creating the soundtrack to a generation. Yet behind the success, Death Row was crumbling. The label became infamous for violence, intimidation, and chaos. Dre, a perfectionist obsessed with his craft, grew frustrated. Suge Knight's reputation, combined with Tupac's murder in 1996, left Dre disillusioned. So he walked away, leaving behind millions of dollars, his masters, and the empire he helped build. To many in the industry, it looked like career suicide. Who walks away from the hottest label in the world? But Dre believed in himself. That same year, he founded Aftermath Entertainment. On paper, it seemed like the logical next step. In reality, it was rocky. Aftermath's first compilation album was a commercial disappointment. His solo album, Dr. Dre Presents The Aftermath, 1996, received mixed reviews. Industry insiders whispered that Dre's golden touch was gone, that he was finished without Snoop and Tupac. The pressure was immense. Here was the man who had already defined two eras of hip-hop gangsta rap with NWA and G-Funk with Death Row, but now his label was floundering. By 1997, Dre's back was against the wall. Aftermath was bleeding money, his reputation was shaky, and the industry was full of vultures waiting to declare him washed. Dre needed something or someone that could resurrect not just his label, but his legacy. He needed a miracle. What Dre didn't know was that Miracle was walking around Detroit, broke, angry, and about to hand out a demo tape that would change both of their lives forever. While Dre was trying to rebuild an empire, hundreds of miles away in Detroit, a skinny white kid named Marshall Bruce Mathers III was living a very different reality. To the world, he would become Eminem, but in the late 90s, he was just another face in a struggling city, hustling to survive. Marshall's childhood was brutal. Born in 1972 and raised by a single mother, Debbie Mathers, he grew up constantly moving between rundown houses and poverty-stricken neighborhoods. Detroit in the 80s wasn't glamorous. It was a city hit hard by factory closures and violence. Eminem was one of those kids who felt invisible, lost in the shuffle. He faced relentless bullying in school. At 9 years old, he was beaten so badly by classmates that he spent days in a coma. He dropped out in 9th grade, never finishing high school. Every setback pushed him further into rap, the only outlet where he felt heard. Detroit had a tough underground rap scene, full of ciphers and freestyle battles. Eminem was an outsider, white, scrawny, and constantly dismissed. But on the mic, he was dangerous. His flow was razor sharp, his rhymes complex, his hunger undeniable. Slowly, he started winning respect. But respect didn't pay bills. By the mid-90s, Eminem was working minimum wage jobs at restaurants like Gilbert's Lodge just to survive, while trying to support his newborn daughter, Hailey Jade. He often said that he'd rap all night, then scrub dishes the next morning. The grind was That's when he created Slim Shady. This alter ego was everything Marshall wasn't allowed to be. Unfiltered, offensive, violent, funny, unafraid. Slim Shady became his weapon. In 1997, he recorded the Slim Shady EP, sharpening his identity and pushing himself into a darker, bolder space. He knew he needed something extreme to stand out. Then came the Rap Olympics in Los Angeles, 1997. Eminem scraped together what little money he had, hoping to win. The prize? $500 cash and a Rolex watch. That was all he wanted. Not fame, not superstardom. Just rent money and a chance to keep feeding his family. He fought his way through the rounds, demolishing opponent after opponent with rapid-fire rhymes. But in the finals, he lost to a local MC named Otherwise. To Marshall, it was crushing. He left the stage broke, humiliated, and feeling like maybe this was it, maybe he just wasn't going to make it. He later admitted that he thought about quitting music altogether. But fate had other plans. Before leaving LA, he handed out copies of the Slim Shady EP. One of those copies landed in the hands of Dean Geislinger and Evan Bogart, two employees at Interscope Records. They passed it to their boss, Jimmy Iovine, and Iovine, impressed by what he heard, took it straight to Dr. Dre. It's one of those unbelievable turning points in history. The night before, Eminem was broke, homeless, and close to quitting. A few days later, Dr. Dre was listening to his voice for the first time. This is the moment where hip-hop history shifted forever. Picture it. 1997, Los Angeles. Jimmy Iovine, co-founder of Interscope Records, had just been handed a demo tape from a desperate rapper out of Detroit named Marshall Mathers, better known to his underground circle as Eminem. The tape had been passed to Iovine by two young AR guys, Dean Geislinger and Evan Bogart, who were impressed by Eminem's raw energy at the Rap Olympics. Iovine wasn't the type of exec to sit on things. He knew exactly who to play it for Dr. Dre, the man whose reputation for spotting raw talent was unmatched. Now, stories about what happened next have become hip-hop folklore. Some people swear that when Jimmy Iovine hit play, Dre immediately turned and said, "Find him, now." Others remember Dre's reaction as something more blunt. "Who the f*** is that?" Even Dre himself has told it differently over the years, which only adds to the legend. In one interview, he admitted, "In my entire career, I'd never signed anyone off a demo tape. But the second I heard this, I knew." That statement carries weight. This was Dr. Dre, the man who gave us Snoop Dogg, Tupac, and NWA. He had worked with some of the most gifted rappers in history, and yet he had never gambled on a voice coming out of a cassette. But when Eminem's rapid-fire rhymes, twisted humor, and raw Detroit hunger came through the speakers, Dre recognized something different. This wasn't just another MC chasing clout. This was someone who could redefine the entire genre. And keep in mind, Dre was under enormous pressure at this time. His label, Aftermath Entertainment, was on the ropes. Critics were saying he'd lost his magic. Backed by Dr. Dre's airtight production, Eminem introduced the world to Slim Shady, a foul-mouthed, fearless alter ego who mocked celebrities, shocked parents, and made the industry nervous. The album went multi-platinum in months, won a Grammy for Best Rap Album, and turned Marshall Mathers from an underground name into a household one. But that was only the beginning. In 2000, Eminem followed up with the Marshall Mathers LP, an album that rewrote the rules. It sold nearly 2 million copies in its first week, breaking records as the fastest-selling rap album at the time. This project produced The Real Slim Shady, The Way I Am, and Stan, a haunting storytelling track that critics still call one of the greatest rap songs of all time. Suddenly, he wasn't just a controversial new face, he was a generational voice. With success came backlash. Politicians called him dangerous. Protesters lined up outside shows, accusing him of spreading hate. Even the Senate dragged his lyrics into debates about morality. But every time the critics shouted louder, his fans shouted louder still. To them, Eminem wasn't a villain, he was an artist brave enough to say what no one else dared. By 2002, The Eminem Show cemented him as the biggest rapper on the planet. Singles like Without Me and Cleanin' Out My Closet dominated charts, while Dre's production gave the album its polish. Eminem had officially crossed from rap star to cultural icon, and behind every track, every hook, was Dr. Dre, the man who bet everything on a rapper the industry once said would never work. In 2024, decades later, Dre made it plain. I think he's the best MC ever. Point blank, period. For a man who worked with Snoop, Tupac, and Kendrick Lamar, that statement carried weight. Slim Shady had arrived. And he didn't just take over rap, he redefined it. What made Dre and Eminem's story so powerful wasn't just the music, it was the loyalty. Their bond went far deeper than beats and rhymes, it became brotherhood. Dre himself admitted it in I Need a Doctor, rapping, "Where the are they now? All I see is Slim." The line wasn't a metaphor. It was real frustration with fake friends who abandoned him when things got hard. But through it all, Eminem stayed. For M, the loyalty went both ways. He never forgot the man who pulled him out of obscurity. In the Defiant Ones documentary, a young Eminem points at Dre and says, "He's my friend. He's really my friend." It was half disbelief, half gratitude. And in 2022, at his Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, Eminem looked out at the crowd and confessed, "Music saved my life." He credited Dre with giving him that chance. That's what makes their bond unique in hip-hop. Both men knew what it felt like to be written off. Dre was told he was finished after Death Row. Eminem was told a white rapper could never succeed. That shared rejection built a trust that money couldn't buy. Fans recognize it too. One viral tweet summed it up. Dre and M's loyalty is what hip-hop needs. No clout chasing, just respect. In an industry full of short-term alliances, their partnership has lasted over 2 decades. It's why their story resonates. Dre wasn't just a producer. Eminem wasn't just an artist. They became brothers who stood by each other through storms. And when Dre calls Eminem the best MC ever, it isn't just praise, it's family speaking. For all their success, the story of Eminem and Dr. Dre wasn't some perfect fairy tale. By the mid-2000s, crack started to show, and for Eminem, those cracks nearly swallowed him whole. Fame had made him one of the most recognizable artists on the planet. But behind the platinum plaques and sold-out tours, he was spiraling into addiction. Painkillers became his escape, and soon they controlled his life. In 2007, everything came crashing down. Eminem collapsed after taking methadone, a terrifying close call that could have ended his story right there. Fans and critics whispered that maybe Slim Shady was finished, that the man who once rapped like a machine had burned out for good. For a time, it seemed like they might be right, but Dre never turned his back. At a moment when others distanced themselves, Dre remained by Eminem's side. That loyalty mattered because Dre knew the feeling of being close to the edge. Every project seemed to be underperforming. In many ways, Dre himself needed saving. So when he pressed play on Eminem's demo, he wasn't just hearing rhymes, he was hearing a way out. That's what makes this moment so powerful. It wasn't just Dre discovering Eminem, it was Eminem saving Dre at the exact same time. Both men were at breaking points. Eminem broke financially and emotionally. Dre broke under industry pressure. That collision created a bond that went deeper than business. It's almost poetic. Here was Dre, a black man from Compton who had fought his way to the top of a racist, violent industry, now hearing the voice of a skinny white kid from Detroit who was facing his own demons of poverty and rejection. By all accounts, Eminem didn't fit the mold. A white rapper in the 90s? It sounded like a gimmick waiting to fail. The industry had seen failed attempts before white rappers who were laughed out of hip-hop. Dre knew the backlash would come. In fact, many insiders told him not to risk it. But Dre wasn't listening to their doubts. He was listening to talent. And that's where Dre has always been different. He has an ear for potential that cuts through everything else. With Snoop, he heard the smoothness. With Tupac, he heard the fire. With Eminem, he heard something completely unique. A blend of anger, wit, and technical skill that no one else had. Dre knew instantly that this wasn't about color or background or expectations. This was about greatness. In that moment, Dre made one of the boldest decisions of his career. He gambled everything, his reputation, his label, and his future on Eminem. He believed that if he could capture that raw, chaotic energy in the studio, they could create something the world had never heard before. And he was right. That single moment when Jimmy Iovine pressed play and Dre heard the Slim Shady demo for the first time, set into motion a partnership that would not only revive Aftermath, but reshape the entire landscape of music. If Dre pressing play was the spark, then their first studio session was the explosion. When Eminem finally met Dr. Dre in person, it wasn't in some corporate boardroom or fancy office. It was in Dre's private home studio, an intimate space where legends are made. Eminem showed up wearing what has since become iconic, a bright yellow sweatsuit head to toe, hoodie, pants, everything. He stuck out like a highlighter. Dre has said in multiple interviews that he'll never forget that outfit. It was the first impression, and it set the tone for what would become one of the greatest creative partnerships in music history. For Eminem, this was surreal. Imagine being broke, losing at the Rap Olympics, ready to quit rap, and then a week later, you're standing in the home of Dr. Dre, the man you grew up idolizing on TV. The nerves must have been suffocating. Eminem admitted years later that he couldn't believe Dre even wanted to meet him. This was his shot, maybe his only shot, and he couldn't afford to blow it. The atmosphere at first was tense, almost awkward, but Dre knew how to break the ice. He fired up his drum machine, looped a quirky sample from Lobby Cifra's I Got The, and told Eminem to see what he could do with it. Within seconds, Marshall leaned in and delivered a line that would change everything. "Hi, my name is... what? My name is..." Dre stopped him instantly. "Yo, that's it. That's the hook. Don't touch it." In that one moment, a hit record was born. And here's where the story gets even crazier. That wasn't the only song they made that day. Within 6 hours, Dre and Eminem recorded 4 complete tracks. Among them were My Name Is and Role Model, songs that would later become defining pillars of the Slim Shady LP. Think about that. The first day they met, they created music that would launch Eminem into superstardom and resurrect Dre's career. That type of chemistry is almost unheard of in the industry. Dre would later describe it as magical. It happened that fast. No bulls, he said. For Eminem, it was overwhelming. He had spent his entire life clawing for recognition, being doubted at every turn. And here was one of his idols, validating him instantly, telling him that his ideas weren't just good, they were world-changing. The yellow sweatsuit session, as fans call it now, has become a legend in hip-hop culture. It's the origin story of Slim Shady as the world knows him. Without that day, there is no My Name Is, no Grammy for the Slim Shady LP, no Eminem show, no Lose Yourself. Without that yellow sweatsuit moment, Aftermath might not have survived. The beauty of that session is how organic it was. Dre didn't force Eminem into a mold. He let him be himself, crazy, funny, offensive, sharp. And Eminem, in turn, trusted Dre to polish his rough edges without muting his voice. That balance became the secret sauce of their partnership. In hindsight, it's almost eerie how perfect it all lined up. Dre, the fallen king looking for redemption, and Eminem, the starving outsider desperate for one chance. Together, in that tiny home studio, they created a sound that would echo for decades. That yellow sweatsuit wasn't just an outfit, it was the uniform of a soldier ready to go to war for his dream. By 1999, hip-hop was shaken to its core. The Slim Shady LP dropped, and it wasn't just another debut album, it was a cultural explosion. In 2021, years after helping M through his darkest days, Dre himself suffered a near-fatal brain aneurysm. Suddenly, both men had faced the same brutal reality. Life can disappear in a second. The parallels are chilling. Both had built empires, both had conquered the world, yet both came dangerously close to losing everything. And yet, they both survived. Eminem clawed his way back from addiction, rebuilt his health, and returned to music stronger than ever. Dre recovered from his health scare and called his survival a second chance at life. By 2025, Eminem celebrated 17 years of sobriety. On Instagram, fans flooded his post with love, leaving comments like, "You didn't just save yourself, you saved us too." Dre himself said it best. Eminem's sobriety wasn't just a personal victory. It was, in his words, a victory beyond music. Their darkest years proved something bigger than hit records, that survival, loyalty, and resilience were at the core of their bond. By 2022, their story had come full circle. Eminem was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and fittingly, it was Dr. Dre who stood on stage to welcome him. Dre told the crowd how Jimmy Iovine had once played him a demo tape from a hungry rapper named Eminem, and how that moment flipped hip-hop on its head. Decades later, he was there to honor the man whose career had validated his gamble. That night wasn't just a ceremony, it was a celebration of survival and brotherhood. Eminem stepped onto the stage and unleashed Rap God, a 6-minute lyrical marathon that reminded everyone why he was considered one of the greatest MCs alive. Then came the surprises. Steven Tyler joined him to sing Dream On, the same song Eminem had sampled for Sing for the Moment. Ed Sheeran appeared to sing the haunting chorus of Stan, a track that had long since entered pop culture history. It was surreal to watch. The kid who once lost at the Rap Olympics, who nearly gave up after being broke and humiliated, was now sharing the stage with rock legends and global superstars. Every performance that night was a reminder of just how far Dre's decision to take a chance on Eminem had carried them both. But the real full circle moment came in Eminem's speech. Standing in front of his peers, he paused, shook his head, and said, "This is crazy. I realize what an honor it is to do the music that saved my life." He didn't just thank Dre. He credited him with giving him the chance to live, to survive, to be more than just Marshall from Detroit. Their legacy wasn't just about Grammys, platinum albums, or sold-out tours. It was about rewriting hip-hop history and proving that loyalty and faith in one another could outlast controversy, critics, and even life-threatening battles. For Eminem and Dre, the Hall of Fame wasn't the end of their story. It was the confirmation that their bond and their music had become timeless. So when Eminem finally opens up about Dr. Dre, it isn't just about hit records. It's about survival. It's about a friendship that defied the odds, saved 2 lives, and reshaped music forever. Dre calls him the greatest MC alive. Eminem calls him his savior. And the truth is, they both saved each other. But here's the real question. If this is just one partnership in hip-hop, what other secrets are still hidden in the industry's shadows?